Alright, double flip. Bam! Hey everyone. Sorry I'm mega late. I know I'm pretty much an hour late. But welcome back to ILoveCinema. It's Thursday. It's 9 p.m. It's not 8 p.m. It's 9 p.m. because I am being mega late, unfortunately. Oh, and I've just actually lost internet on my computer. Yay! Everything is going according to plan. But I'm late with a good reason. Because we have a bunch of, why doesn't this work? We have a bunch of film festivals happening in London. The London Film Festival, it's not officially started yet, not for the general public, but the press screenings, sorry, I'm just trying to sort out some technical issues, but I'm just going to be entertaining you while I'm trying to do that. So the press screenings have started for the LFF 2018 as of Monday. And hey, how you doing there, sir? Oh, ha, Sir Doodly F is here. Hi, welcome. I'm going to be talking a lot about any films. Hey, Corey, any films I can talk about that have so far been screened for the press and industry delegates at the London Film Festival 2018. I've also now, yesterday we had Raindance Film Festival start. Hey, everybody, thank you very much for joining. Which is why I'm a bit late this week, because the last screening ended shortly before 8 and I just had to rush back here. And oh, the internet is back, which is also nice. I'm just checking out what is new on DVD, because I always end the show on that. Because I always quite like to know what is actually coming out, what have I missed in the cinema, what can I now actually catch up on, which is usually quite exciting. Sometimes not as much, but most of the time. So today is going to be the first of the next potentially 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, where I will be covering a lot of films that you've probably never heard of that are screening at those festivals. So we have the London Film Festival. God, everything here is a mess. I literally just came home like 5 minutes ago. So we have the London Film Festival, and we also have the Raindance Film Festival. And like I said, London Film Festival started screening certain films for some industry delegates on Monday, so I've basically been living in the cinema since Monday morning. I also managed to catch a bunch of other films that are not screening at the film festival, so just regular releases. If you're following me on Twitter, you probably know I mentioned that I saw The Little Stranger, and most importantly for this week's release, because we just had I think it was the world premiere actually, a few hours ago, A Star is Born, starring Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. I also had a chance to see that this week, so I'm going to be talking about that. And as always, this is entirely spoiler free, so don't you worry about me spoiling any fun there. But most of it, I will be going through some of the films that I've seen at the film festivals, especially for the London Film Festival, because that is not open to the public yet. It starts on the 10th. So there are certain films that I think you really should try and grab tickets for, because they're bloody fantastic. So let me just quickly have a look at this. This is all fine so far. I mean, we should be live. I haven't even checked that yet, because my internet was being a tiny bit problematic, as per usual, right? I mean, we usually have a bit of problems when it comes to that. And I noticed that everybody who was watching has already bucketed off. Thanks. So it looks like something's live, so that's good. So I'm gonna start straight away with the very first film, the opening film for the London Film Festival for press and industry delegates, and that was Wildlife. In case you can't read that, sorry. It says Wildlife, and that is Paul Dano's directorial debut, which is one of the reasons I wanted to see it. It stars Carey Mulligan and Jake Gyllenhaal, Bill Camp and Ed Oxenboulder in there as well. They might not mean much to you. They didn't really mean much to me until I saw their faces, and I was like, I know that guy. It's a really good movie. I didn't write down any synopses, so I'm just literally, this entire show is at the seat of my pants, or whatever you say, is like flying off the seat at the seat of my pants, whatever that saying is. You know, it's like mega impromptu and nothing's been really prepared. I literally came home now it's 10 minutes ago. Let's have a look. What's this one? Not as cool. So we have, I think it's set in the, is it set in the 50s? I'm not entirely sure. It felt like a period piece. But the main gist is that we have Carey Mulligan and Jake Gyllenhaal are playing a couple. They have a son. I think he's like 13, 14 years old, so he's a teenager. They're very happy family. And that is being portrayed at the start of the film as well. They're very happy, they're very lovey-dovey, and the parents are actually really in love with each other. It's really beautiful, happy, almost too idyllic and perfect family life. That's how the film starts out. And if you've ever seen any kind of film, you know that that will definitely deteriorate, because these things, they never last very long. And obviously we go to the cinema because we see our heroes go through some shit, right? One of the things I really like about the film, because I don't want to give too much away, everything is fine, and then there is one event that happens, which is not even that profound. The husband loses his job. That's all that is. But that spirals their entire life out of control through a series of events and decisions that everyone is making. That just, you know, it's like the small stone that treads loose an avalanche. And it's really interesting to see that. And one of the things that I really loved about the film, that it's based on a book, but I'm not sure if the book decided to do that as well. The entire story is basically from the perspective of the son. So everything that happens, you see through the eyes of the son. And Dano does that really well, because the emphasis is definitely, hey there, Broken Arrow, welcome. I'm just talking about wildlife that I've seen at the London Film Festival. Spoiler free, so don't worry. And I love that he's showing all of that through the eyes of the son. And that is Bill Camp, right? That is Bill Camp. I hope I'm not mixing them up now. Let's see, wildlife. As you can tell, I've not done any research because I just got home. How's you? I'm good. I'm a bit stressed, but I'm trying not to let life stress me. How are you, Broken Arrow? How you doing? Hope you're not too broken, Broken Arrow. Let's have a look. Wildlife. Oh, wildlife film. Otherwise, I just get results for wildlife. That would not be very helpful. Wildlife film. I just want to have a look who plays the young son, because he's really phenomenal. I really, really like him. Let's have a look. Ed Oxenbould. Joe Brenson. Yeah, it's Ed Oxenbould. It's not Bill Camp. Sorry, it's the older guy. I totally mixed that up. It's basically like a 4-part theatre play, you could say. Like, you could easily watch something like this on stage. It's a very character-driven film. The performances are fantastic. Yeah, it's been a very long week, and this is just the first of 3 very, very long weeks for me. So I hope you're hanging in there, mate. I'm just watching a lot of movies, and I'm sharing what I think of them. As I said, spoiler free. So everything is through the eyes of the son, and Dano does that really well. He directs the entire film very calmly. The entire film, like that, it's very reassuring, very calm, and there's a lot of shit that happens in it, that happens to this family, that happens to all these characters, and I think it's more powerful. Hey Corey, welcome back. It's even more powerful because Dano basically doesn't make a big hoopla about it. He lets the characters speak for themselves and has the story speak for itself. I'm good, Corey. How are you doing? So I loved everything that has to do with the son. Ed Oxenbould's a really, really charismatic, very captivating young actor. He has like big eyes, very expressive face, and a lot of the stuff that happens there when the parents fight for the first time, you don't really see them fighting. You hear them fighting, and you see you see everything through his eyes. It's his reaction that we're seeing, and we're hearing what's going on. And Paul Dano incorporates this type of storytelling device quite a lot throughout the film. And if you've ever seen, what was it, The Brave? No, not The Brave, that's a Jodie Foster one. The one with like the firefighters with Josh Brolin and a bunch of other people. This film also has like this recurring potential threat of a wildfire, and this is where Jake Gyllenhaal eventually goes to, which is why he sort of leaves his family behind, because that is the job that he deems is the right job for him. And like I said, everything just spirals out of control, and that is not even a spoiler, because it is so predictable in these kind of set up ways. Until then, other stuff is happening. And I think you could potentially say, it's like, even if I've not read the book. If you've read the book, obviously you know exactly what's going to happen. But the story is quite predictable. But it is more so in how we're telling it. Like how the characters are telling it and how the actors are telling it through their characters. More so than we're seeing a story we've never seen before. I really liked it. It got a bit mixed grapevine reviews after I walked out of the screening, which I thought was quite interesting. It is very, like, it has potential pacing issues. It does take its time to tell its story. So you, like I said, he's directing it in a very, very calm way. You need to really bring a bit of patience with it. But I think the actors more than make up for that. And when Bill Camp is introduced as a guy who has a lot of money, who is very successful, a guy called Warren Miller, that obviously throws a spanner in the works. That is very obvious what's going to happen there. But it's just how the characters bring it across and how they're playing it. You don't really see, there's not like a proper hero and a villain. There's not like a proper love triangle where you go, it's like, oh yeah, that's the bad guy, that's the good guy, and that's the person I'm rooting for. Everyone has like pros and cons and good things and bad things, and that's what makes this really, really interesting. And who you feel for more than anything is, of course, the son, who's just caught in the middle of it. So overall, I think this is a really great debut for Paul Dano. Really enjoyed this film. I thought the performances were great. It looks fantastic as well. The cinematography is amazing. The score, I don't remember, so I think that is a really decent score, because it's not like it was wowing you with, did you hear this amazing score, and it goes under your skin and all of that stuff. None of that happened. So it's not like elevator music, so it does what it's supposed to do without being obnoxious, without drawing attention to itself. So the attention is definitely on the actors. It is a perfect character piece. It's a 4-part character piece that I think you could easily put up on stage. And with that, oh, you can't even see the title. Well, the title's in Russian, because this is a Russian film. It's called Crystal Swan in the English language countries. And it's also seen this at the London Film Festival. And it's I want to say comedy, but it's a comedy that has a very dark and, a very, very dark turn near the end that I did not see coming. So the premise is that you have our lead, I think her name's Valya, if I remember correctly. She's a DJ in Minsk in Russia, and she wants to go to the US because she thinks she's going to have a better career in the US because she's a DJ, and obviously DJing is huge in the US. And she is applying for a visa to the States, and the film starts out with her trying to apply for this visa, and we meet all these weird bureaucratic hoops that they have to jump through in order to get these visas. And they're really ridiculous hoops. Like, you would go like, why would you need this? Why would you need that? It's ridiculous. But that's what they apparently have to do. So what happens is that she goes on the black market. She gets some kind of headed paper for a company because she needs to pretend that she's a manager at a company, that she has a really decent income. Because for whatever reason, if you don't have a good job, a well-paying job, they think you're going to America never to return because there's nothing here for you. So it's like, if you don't like have a lot of income, you're putting a lot of money into a visa to the US, you're going to go for a one-way ticket, aren't you? And they're not letting you go. So she's pretending she has a really good job. And on this job application, she fills in a phone number that the American embassy will have to call in order to verify her credentials. And because of that phone number, it's a fictional phone number that, because the letterhead is smudged, so she just makes up whatever phone number. And then it turns out, while she's being interviewed for the visa, they're telling her, it's like, yeah, okay, don't worry, we're just going to check all of that, so we're going to call this number and just verify that what you're saying is true. And she's like, oh, you're calling this number. And then she immediately goes outside, goes on public telephone, calls the number, and is trying to figure out who the number that she put on the visa belongs to. And that starts, an entire avalanche of events happening that is this entire film. And it is absolutely fantastic because the lead actress is brilliant. And I wrote down her name somewhere. Let's have a look. like I said, I literally just got in. Electrifying lead. I did not write down her name, which is not very helpful. Well, the lead in Crystal Swan, she's really awesome. So this is definitely one of my highlights that I've seen so far, even though it has a very, very dark turn near the end that I really didn't see coming. The entire thing's like, she's trying to figure out who this number belongs to. She goes pretty much on a road trip. She doesn't even have a car, so she gets on a bus and then on a train and then on another bus just to go to this weird place called Crystal Town, which is why it's called Crystal Swan, where this number is located. And she literally just waltzes into this family's life who is trying to put on a wedding for their oldest son. And she's like, can I just use your phone? Because someone needs to pick up the phone and just confirm that I'm the manager and I work here and that I'm awesome. That's all you need to do. And everyone's like, why the fuck would I do that? What are you doing here? This is my house. And it's absolutely hilarious the way that works. Because she walks into these people's lives and into their flat and everything. She's asking for permission and people just... She's just the kind of person that people just welcome in. It's really crazy. And at first I was like, all these things that are happening to her, that's kind of sending a really dangerous message, because everything, like nothing happens to her, right? She's amongst strangers. She's sleeping in strangers' beds or couches, and she's hanging out at strangers' places. Like they could all be mass murderers. She could be dead 50 million times over, right? Nothing happens. And then the film takes a bit of a dark turn. I felt like a lot of people that I talked to afterwards, they were like, that really threw me and I didn't like it and that made me not like the film. And I was like, really? I actually liked that happened because I was so concerned that people watch this film, especially young women, potentially teenagers, and they watch it and they see she does all these crazy things and shit just works out for her. In a good way. Always, everything has a happy ending. Everything works out for her. She gets to where she needs to go. She finds the phone and she makes friends and she's just having a blast doing what she's doing. And she just always gets by and nothing ever happens to her. And I was like, yeah, but that's not a good message to send because you shouldn't emulate what she is doing because that's really fucking dangerous. And then something happens and I'm like, as bad as it is, and that's not really a spoiler because even though I thought it was unexpected, I was hoping that something like this would happen in the film because I was really concerned about the message the film was giving out. Then it kind of like grinds to a halt and grounds the entire events in a lot of reality. That really sat not very well with a lot of people. I liked it because it was horrible. But it's like showing you the other side of the coin that when you go out and you go on this adventure and you do these ludicrous, ridiculous things, it doesn't always end well. Or you're not going to get through it unscathed. I'm not saying that you're dying, but, so I really liked that there was this dark turn at the end because otherwise it would have felt a bit irresponsible almost to put this kind of film out there. Until that point happens, though, which is in the last, I think, 20 minutes. Up until that point, the film is absolutely hilarious. It's a comedy. It is so ridiculously ludicrous with everything that happens there. And not just the lead, but a lot of the other actors in it. They're really, really good. One of her best friends who seems to always be stoned and seems to be a bit potentially mentally challenged or something. But he is a very memorable character and he plays this slightly demented character really, really well. So much so that every time that this guy showed up on screen, people really enjoyed his character. So I thought this is definitely one of the better films that I've seen so far. I highly recommend this one. I don't want to call it a comedy though because of this really dark turn at the end. But until then, it is perfectly fine for everyone to watch. I would suggest not to take to take young teenagers to this because it's probably not giving a really good message. But if you're an adult, definitely go for it. It's really well done. At first I was like, I'm not really into the DJ scene and stuff. I was if that's what this is about. It's got nothing to do with her being a DJ. She could be someone working in a supermarket packing groceries. It's exactly the same thing. But she's got a really cool look, and you can tell that she doesn't really fit into grey-looking Russia because she's very colorful, and she's a very colorful person, and that she would really do well in the US. So I think the lead is fantastic. The performances are great. The entire idea for the script, I'm not sure if this is like based on potentially a real life happening, but it's awesome. I really, really loved it. It wasn't on my list of films to watch at all, because obviously, it's about a DJ and the DJ scene. I'm not really interested. This film is great. I highly recommend you watch it. Try and get tickets to Crystal Swan at the London Film Festival here at the BFI. And with that, we're going into Shadow, which is Zhang Yimou's latest film. And it's about two kingdoms at war, basically. They have a bit of a Mexican standoff, so there's a weird peace going on. And certain people in one kingdom are not very happy with that peace because they feel their king is kind of cowering before the other king, and that obviously makes them feel bad, especially military people, the generals and stuff. And what you always have with these kind of like potentially epical Asian, especially Chinese films that take place in the medieval ages, they're usually quite on a grand scale. They're epics. There's a lot of palace intrigues, a lot of politics. You have the same thing here, but this one is not as epic as I thought it would be. And that might sound a bit weird, so bear with me. This is more of like an intimate story, like an intimate approach to a very epic tale. The film is called Shadow, and shadows are apparently peasants or non-rich, non-aristocratic people that in medieval times, or maybe they still do it nowadays, I don't know. But aristocrats or rich people used people that looked like them as their shadow, because there was always the threat of assassinations and all of that stuff. And obviously people kind of don't really want to die. So they were rich enough or powerful enough to be able to just literally grab someone. It's like, oh, you look like my son. Okay, you're going to be his shadow. And that's kind of what happens here. And this is the tale of one of these shadows, who is a shadow for someone who's trying to overthrow the government, the king, you know. And there's all of this palace intrigue happening while you also basically feel for and see what the shadow is going through, because he is basically, it's like Old Boy. He's a hostage that is being mistreated, misused as the shadow. He never had a choice. He was basically abducted as a small child because he looked like the child of a rich dude. Yeah, well, and the guy was like, well, I love my son, so I'm going to get him a shadow. So nothing ever happens to him. And then he gets drawn into this Mexican standoff of uneasy peace between these two warring kingdoms. One of which is the kingdom of Pai, something like that. Everything was in subtitles, so I'm not entirely sure. And I also don't speak Chinese, so bear with me. I know a lot more Japanese words than I do Chinese words. Can't actually think of a single Chinese word now. Sayonara, that's all I've got. Doesn't mean that you have to leave now. But it's really beautifully shot. The entire film is pretty much like this poster, monochromatic. Everything is black and white, with the occasional splash of red. And we all know what red stands for, right? Blood. It's kingdoms, wars, of course there's blood, right? But I love high contrast imagery, and that's pretty much what this film is. The film depicts yin and yang a lot. So the opposites of things, and how everything is in balance. It uses the flow of water a lot, which is something that Zhang Yimou has been using in the past, that a lot of Asian films, a lot of Chinese films have been using in the past, and I am personally a huge fan of. I like, I'm still wearing my fucking credentials. I like black and white photography because it's all about the actual object, the actual subject of your photography. It's not about the colors or anything, it's about the actual thing that you're seeing, right? So I personally like that kind of stuff, and I find it really awe-inspiring, and it's down to the basics, and when I still remember like walking into the cinema because I was like 5 minutes late. There's like a lot of film screening. It's like you're running around like a headless chicken. So I walked in there and I was like, wow, that looks amazing. Because it does. Absolutely does. Everything is about patterns and shapes and water, and there's slow motion. And of course you also have this amazing water flowy, typical wicked combat choreography that we're so used to from Chinese films. And you have that in here as well, but different. And it's just absolutely beautiful. I personally had a lot of problems differentiating between the different characters because they all, I'm really sorry, they all look the same to me. The women looked very similar, the men looked very similar, that they were all wearing the same sort of style and pattern of clothing didn't help either. They all kind of had the same haircut except for the one crazy person who was easily discernible. The story is very predictable. It's a story that we've heard 50 million times before. But I liked the more intimate approach of actually showing you something that is basically happening at a really epic grand scale. But we're showing it through the eyes of this shadow. It's all about him and how his life is affected by it. And everything that happens to him, yeah, it's very checklisty. And even at the end, when there's a couple of twists and turns happening in rapid succession, you're like, ooh, ooh, it's like a soap opera. It's like, ooh, and now this happens, and now that happens, and then this happens. And all of that is so checklisty that I was like, oh, it's like, oh, yep, there we go. And now, yep, and that too, and that too. Okay, cool. But it still comes across as fitting somehow. You know, they're not reinventing the wheel, you know. But it looks fantastic. It sounds fantastic as well. The music is absolutely beautiful. It is a tad too long. I find that with a lot of festival films that are not going to get a general mainstream cinema release, they usually have pacing issues. For me, personally, obviously this is all my personal opinion. Now, especially nowadays, we're so used to seeing films that are edited like this. They have a lot of pacing. They're at such a breakneck speed that we sometimes go like, wow, I wish I could breathe. Like, just stop for a second and smell the roses. But these films kind of go exactly the opposite. And they sometimes linger too long where you're like, come on, let's move on, cut to the next thing. We've been here for too long. What are you trying to tell me? It's like, we're still here a minute later and there's no additional information that you're giving me, so I don't know why we're still here. That kind of thing. I found that in the last few days. I've only been doing this for 4 days. And there's several films that I thought had tremendous pacing issues. Films where I would have cut out 10 to 20 minutes of footage. But that is just me. Maybe I'm just a bit impatient. And also, obviously, I'm watching about 3 to 4 films every single day, so that does get to you. But I thought this one, just like Zhang Yimou films in general, they look fantastic. They sound fantastic. The story might not be anything new, but it's an experience. And I think it's something that you should experience on the big screen, because just if you're into cinematography or visuals, if that is kind of your thing, if you like black and white photography, if you liked Sin City, the original Sin City, I think you would enjoy this just from the visual point of view, because it is kind of similar. It's high on contrast, on the light and shadow, the yin and yang, the visual effectiveness of slow motion and water, and everything flows really well. It's high in contrast. Oh, and one of the things that I thought was really great, which I'd never seen before, this film introduces a new weapon. Because one of the things is what that pie kingdom, whatever. Every time I say pie, I think of the food, which is not good. So it's like pay. That's how they write it. P-A-Y. P-E-I. And they're really good with like these long spear things. And they're pretty much like a indestructible army. They're like the... now I can't think of those awesome guys in Game of Thrones. Never mind. Unsullied. That's what I wanted to say. They're kind of like the Unsullied. They're like indestructible. They're amazing kind of thing. And then that kingdom that the Shadow is working for just they can't go up against them, which is why the king goes, we need to have this Mexican standoff, and I don't know, we're gonna do everything in my power, in your power, in everyone's power, to just not be at war with them, because we stand no fucking chance. And we need to get going, half an hour. And then they bring in a new weapon, and you see this umbrella here. Yeah, and everything's got to do with water, right? So of course umbrella. There's a lot of rain happening in this film, and it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, I love rain, but it's absolutely beautiful the way this is shot. And they introduce you to a so-called umbrella weapon near the end of the film, and it is spectacular. Some of it is really stupid, but it is spectacular the way it's included in the narrative, the way it's included in the combat. It is phenomenal, the stuff that happens near the end. There's too much with the palace intrigue, and like I said, churning and slow motion and stuff, but overall I thought, hey Broken Arrow, welcome back. I'm just talking about Zhang Yimou's new film, Shadow. Overall, I thought visually really stunning. I loved it because it's black and white with the occasional color splash, which makes the color splash even more powerful. So I'm a huge fan of that. I know that not a lot of people seem to enjoy that, but that is how our preferences differ. This is another film I've seen, The Breaker Upperers, which is a film from New Zealand. And I'm a huge fan of films from New Zealand. I used to live in New Zealand for a year. I love New Zealand. I think it's awesome. They have a wicked sense of humor. They're really cool, easygoing people. This film is a comedy. It reminded me, and I think it's even produced by Taika Waititi. It reminded me of Hunt for the Wilder People and other Waititi films, right? It starts out really strong with these two ladies. They basically play the breaker upperers. That means that they have a company, or they provide a service where they enable other people to basically get out of relationships that they, for whatever reason, can't get out of themselves. So they pretend to be cops and say, oh yeah, he has to leave the country because he's wanted, or like the craziest, most fucked up scenarios, like this person's dead, or this person has an STD, or like all kinds of weird things why the people shouldn't be with this other person anymore. And this is how the film starts. They introduce all these weird settings where it's like, this is that case. Like two detectives, basically. This is this case. This is that case. This is how we did here. This is how we did that. And they're shedding uniforms and costumes like crazy. They're stewardesses, nurses, cops, all kinds of things, right? And it's absolutely hilarious the way that works. And that goes on for quite a while. And there's one client who's a bit more problematic, but it's also one of those cases. And she kind of comes back into the story later on because she sees them sitting somewhere. And I can't remember which... oh yeah, from Taika Waititi and the producers of Boy and Hunt for the Wilder People. I can't remember what city in New Zealand this actually takes place in. For whatever reason, I did not write that down. And as you can see, it's like everyone is writing, it's like hilarious, 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 hilarious. Everybody's saying it's fucking hilarious. And it is the first half. And then it's trying to be a proper movie with a story and a storyline and some characterizations, and then it just falls flat. For me, personally, I was sitting next to three women who were laughing their asses off. And one of them in a rather obnoxious way, which did not help me enjoying the film at all. But the first half I thought was really good. And then they introduced stuff where one of the clients is a really moronic, and I do mean that. He's a moron. He doesn't know what 2 + 2 is. That kind of intellectual level. Teenage rugby player. 17-year-old rugby player. It's the stereotypical jock who is stupid as fuck. Like a T-Rex could outsmart him at Jeopardy. Stupid as hell. And for whatever reason, he's one of the clients because his girlfriend is very intense, let's just say that. She's actually one of the better characters. And he just doesn't have the balls to get rid of her, right? And
for whatever reason, one of the two women, the younger one, kind of falls for him. Even though he's as fucking stupid as a potato. And that is not being nice to the potato. He is so stupid. Why they went into this stereotype, I don't know, because I did not think it funny. I found it really horrible, considering the second half of the film is two women who aren't too stupid themselves, right? And, you know, who got stuff going for them a tiny bit. They are basically battling it out, vying for this Mr. Awesome moron of the universe. And it makes you think, it's like, do men really not have to have any kind of positive things about them other than their looks and muscle to be attractive and wanted by a woman? That's kind of the message the second half of the film gave me, and it really, really rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't find it funny. I found it very disconcerting. And the problem is, because it's too realistic, because this shit happens all the time. You know, the dude can be dumb as bread, but the women are, oh, but he's just look at his hair and his smile and his abs and his ass, and he's just awesome. And especially because he's gonna get signed by a rugby team on the Gold Coast or something, so he's gonna make some good money, right? So he's just sexy, and he's got some muscle, and he's got some money, so the women are totally into him, even though he's the dumbest fucks of dumbest fucks. And that really pissed me off, and also the humor really falling flat, which the first half didn't do as much, but in the second half, it was like, you had someone clever with a bunch of brain cells writing the first half of the film, and then it looks like they fired that person, and someone else just ended up finishing the script, and they decided to shoot it like that. I didn't find the second half funny at all. There were maybe 2 or 3 laugh out loud funny moments, but most of the time I was cringing. I was literally watching, it's like, oh my god, what the fuck am I watching? And as you can see, there's a lot of people that think that this film is absolutely hilarious. Some people even say this is as great as Hunt for the Wilder People. And I want to meet these people because I want to smack some fucking sense into their brains. Because Hunt for the Wilder People is one of the most amazing films in the last few years. This is not. Now, the first half, really good. Really like it. I obviously love that there are 2 female leads in this film. I love the Kiwi accent. I love that it's taking place in New Zealand. I love New Zealand. It's awesome, right? Unfortunately, the second half of the film is so horrible, especially considering how good the first half is, that I was just like, what the fuck? I did not like it, and I walked out, what the fuck did I just watch? Yeah, it's like the yin and yang of Zhang Yimou's Shadow. The first half, really good. The second half, really bad. The other way around would have probably been better, because at least it leaves you with the good stuff. So I did not like this film, unfortunately. Everyone else did, though. This is a documentary I've seen. I can't talk about it because the premiere is, I can't remember, is it October 17th? Something like that. They have the premiere during the London Film Festival for the official run. And that's why I can't talk about it until it's had its world premiere. So more on that later. This is May the Devil. What was it? May the Devil. Hang on. It is May the Devil Take You, which is the first horror film. Well, so far I think the only horror film I've seen. It's a horror movie, Asian horror. I'm not a particular horror fan. But I've watched horror films. I'm a huge fan of The Quiet Place, and I'm more into thrillers than I am into slashers and stupid horror films that just try to scare you with cheap jump scares, because they're called cheap jump scares for a reason, because they're fucking cheap. You need to build up suspense and stuff. Come on. You know, that there are horror movies that are actually horrifying when you watch them, and it's not just because it's like, oh, something's going to happen, and then there's a cut to something grotesque, and it's been quiet, and then there's a loud noise, and that's why, you know, cheap jump scares, blah. I'm not a fan. So this film actually started out really well. There's a dude, he basically gets a lady to come to his house, they go into the basement, and yeah, it's not that kind of film. And she does some voodoo shit, and all of a sudden he becomes rich. So I was immediately reminded of Hereditary, which is not what this is. But so he becomes rich. And then you see in newspaper clippings, yeah, great life, and richness here and richness there. Oh, his first wife died, the daughter's still left over. Oh, he now marries a beautiful actress, they've got some kids. Oh, all of a sudden he loses all his fame and fortune and blah. Everything goes downhill. Next thing we know, he's in hospital, he looks like shit. And everyone's congregating there, his entire family, like the first daughter, then the second wife, because the first wife died, and the other siblings, right? And then, like, kind of like the Ring Grudge, weird-ass looking lady with always long black hair in the face, makes an appearance. And because everybody's run out of money, they go to this old villa, which used to be his first house, I guess, which is where this basement thingamajig happened at the start of the film. And they're trying to find out anything of value that they can sell because the hospital bills are really expensive. And then basically people take all these, I don't know, charms and enchantments, whatever that is, that are on the basement door. They don't read them, and I don't read kanji. Chinese symbols, so I don't know what they were saying, but I've seen enough Asian stuff that it looks like they were like, beware, don't take this off, we're trying to ward off evil or something. And of course they do what they do, they open the fucking basement door and all hell breaks loose. So overall the gist is basically they're in this old reclusive house out in the middle of nowhere, so not much help, and there's this being that is basically trying to kill them one after another. That's the gist of it. Now, in general, that could have made for a really interesting horror movie, because this has been done 50 million times before, quite successfully. If you're a horror fan, you know the recipe for it. And that stuff just works. People just eat it up, they just go for it, and it's amazing. However, in this, this is the most ridiculously idiotic, ludicrous horror film that I have seen in a long time. And fair enough, I don't watch a lot of horror films, but I think even the most hardcore horror film will just be laughing their asses off here. This is a movie that needs to be consumed at a drunken party. Like when you have a bunch of friends over, you're getting drunk, you're watching Netflix, you can laugh at the screen, you can throw shit at the screen, you can yell at the screen without, causing any harm to other movie-going patrons. Because this is literally like, they're opening the basement door, and then shit comes out of it, and then we put the shit back into the basement, and no one closes the door. Like, seriously, my first reaction would be, we're closing the door, we're putting, like, all the wardrobes and chairs and tables and I don't know what else in front of it, but we're making sure that this door will never ever open again. This is not a thought that occurs to anyone in this film, which is like, why would you do that? Or why wouldn't you close the fucking basement door? Like, there's a lot of stuff in this film that the characters do that makes no sense. It makes no sense. Like, this is not how I or anyone I know would react in a situation like this. It's like, it doesn't matter whether it's voodoo lady, whatever it is, in the basement, or if it's a ghost, or it doesn't matter what it is. But if there's shit coming out of the basement that is not really good for my health, I'm gonna fucking try to keep it down there and me up here and put as much stuff in between us as I can. Which includes closing the door, putting shit in front of it, running out of the entrance, and making a fucking beeline for the next highway. Instead of staying the night, because I'm still gonna look for some value in this fucking house. It's like, seriously, people have weird priorities in this film. The one good thing about it it looks really good visually. They have some good special effects, and they really want to go like, look, we put a lot of time and effort and money into the special effect, which is why it was like, look at the special effect. The special effect's not over. Keep looking at it. Keep looking at it. Keep looking at it. It's still not over. Keep looking at it. I was like, just kill me now. Seriously, I almost wanted to get into the film, go through, open the basement door and just walk down into the basement and have the lady kill me. It was ludicrous and ridiculous. I had several reviewers behind me laughing their asses off. Literally. Laughing their asses off. Every 5 minutes. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And I felt bad for the actors, because the actors are the good thing about this. They're really doing their darndest to sell this shit. They're being very, I don't really want to say natural, but they're really trying to make this work without overacting, you know. I thought that they just didn't know what kind of ridiculous bullshit they were in, unfortunately. So I watched that and I was like, how did this ever get nominated, get like selected to be screened? Because it's really stupid. It's kind of like as moronic and stupid as that stereotypical male jock in the Breaker Upperers. It was really, really silly. And not silly as in good way, as in like, haha, you know, like safety, death, and you walk that way. No. It's like, I really had to restrain myself from yelling at the screen. Because it was just so ludicrous and absolutely stupid. That is just not how I think anyone in this situation would react, and that's why it felt ridiculous, and that's why it felt unnatural and absolutely idiotic, and that's why the film didn't work for me. And I think it didn't work for a lot of people, because people were laughing their asses off, some people were groaning, and afterwards people were like, what the fuck was that? And that was May the Devil Take You. Because after that you probably want the devil to take you. This one is so far my absolute highlight. I'm probably going to run over a bit because I haven't even talked about the new Lady Gaga movie. It's called The Bill Murray Stories, Life Lessons Learned from a Mythical Man. Now this is a documentary, and I'm usually not that big of a fan of documentaries because I like fiction, I like scripted stuff. This is one of the most life-affirming, life-changing, mindset-changing, mind-blowing, eye-opening, spiritual documentaries that has nothing to do with any of the above that I've just mentioned that I have ever seen. All I knew is Bill Murray, and I like Bill Murray, and so I was going to watch it. I didn't know that there are the weirdest Bill Murray sightings happening all over the world, especially in the US, obviously, because that's where he lives, but literally all over the world. That he rocks up at someone's house party and, I don't know, and plays an instrument. Or that he rocks up at someone's dinner party and just entertains the guest. He goes to a college frat party and washes the dishes. Or he poses with people for engagement photos, or, you know, weird stuff after weird stuff. And this documentary filmmaker, and I didn't write down his name because I'm not prepared. Do we have the pages on here? Whoever the filmmaker is for this, a thrilling documentary. Damn it, I didn't write it down. I'm so sorry. Let's see. Anyway, the dude who did this, he's in the film as well. He did a fantastic job, because this is one of the most entertaining documentaries I've ever seen. He gets a lot of archival footage from all these people that have encountered these Bill Murray sightings, because nowadays obviously everyone's got smartphones, so a lot of this stuff has been captured by smartphones. So there's all this stuff that he's showing you, that he's got the rights from these people to include it in his documentary. And it's just the most amazing thing. And I don't want to give too much away, because I really don't want to spoil the experience for you, because watching this film is more of a spiritual experience without it being like all airy-fairy. But it's very, like, you learn a lot about Bill Murray, but you don't need to be a fan of Bill Murray. But it's more about how he goes about living his life, how very in the moment he is, which is why he might just rock up at a neighbor's party and goes, "You girls really shouldn't do the dishes," and then he starts doing the dishes just because he can, and then all of a sudden, with a poof, he's gone again, you know. And there's just the most amazing retellings of encounters people have had with Bill Murray and how it affected them and how it changed their lives. And the documentary filmmaker, whose name escapes me right now, but he's amazing, he really delves deep into this and what it means to people and how Bill Murray gets away with literally just walking into someone's house and being welcomed. And he also went to some frat party because a band was playing there, and for whatever reason he was with the band, and he walked in just carrying an amp. Bill Murray walked into my house carrying an amp, and people go like, "Oh my God, you're Bill Murray." He's like, "Don't worry, I'm not the highlight. I'm just a roadie today." And he's just the most unassuming person ever, you know, no ego, nothing. And it's like he always goes like, "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. You know, just be in the moment. Just be you. Just do things. You know, stop planning everything." And I'm not gonna do it justice by saying anything about it. All I'm gonna tell you is, like, if you're interested in watching films at the London Film Festival, try your darndest to get tickets to this. And I know it's a documentary and a lot of people don't like watching documentaries, but trust me, you will enjoy watching this because it is laugh out loud funny. Literally, I shit you not, it is laugh out loud funny because some of the stuff that they're talking about and that they're showing you video footage of it. This is not made up. This shit actually happened. Just these retellings are already hilarious. And then the documentary filmmaker, he's quite self-deprecating. You know, he's got a good sense of humor as well. And he just brings certain insight to it as well. And he's just really entertaining. And the way everything is cut together and adds up to each other. It just is a beautiful narrative and a red line that goes through the entire thing. And it works really, really well. And it really, I know it sounds horrible and a bit much, but I think it's quite life-changing. It gives you an interesting perspective on things and of life and how we should maybe go and live our lives and maybe just slow down and, like I said earlier, and slow down and smell the roses, right? Because we just don't. You know, we always assume things. And yeah, he just joins a bunch of people in the park and starts playing football with them. And then he just leaves. And people go like, "Who's this homeless guy who's starting to play football?" It's Bill Murray. Yeah, he can play football with us. He gets away with it because he's Bill Murray and everyone in America knows him. Because he's a phenomenon, right? He's been a celebrity for decades. And people just love him because he's so unassuming. There's nothing he wouldn't do. He's so self-deprecating and ready to clown around and he just doesn't take himself very seriously. And I think that is an appeal that a lot of people just can't resist because it is a very irresistible way to be. And he's just phenomenal. And I really love this film. And I was buzzing when I walked out of that screening, and so was everyone else. Everyone had a great time. It's like having met Bill Murray. That kind of a buzz, you know. This was a really good time. I was so entertained. It was funny, and I felt like I took something from it that not just made my day brighter, but gave me a different outlook on life and how I maybe shouldn't take things too seriously and go like, none of this, you know, it doesn't matter. And that's exactly what it is. It also doesn't matter that I'm going to be running over the hour I usually do. Make sure you get tickets to this. Just trust me on that. Forget that it's a documentary. Don't look in the planner for documentary. Look in the planner for the Bill Murray stories. you want to get a ticket to that. Trust me, you can thank me later. And with that, we're going into Support the Girls, which is a film starring Regina Hall. And this is a really fantastic workplace comedy that has its finger on the pulse, what's going on at the moment. Because this is kind of like the everyday shit that women have to go through in the patriarchal society that we live in nowadays. But it does so in a very entertaining way. It's also quite stereotypical. Some characters are a bit farcical, but they fully embrace that and really drive that home. I really enjoyed that a lot because it's kind of like, you know, with all the misogyny and stuff that's happening in the world nowadays and the Me Too movement and stuff, it's really important to have these kinds of films around to show it's like, this is what life is like when you're a woman, or what life can be like when you're a woman. Obviously, there are so many different shades of that, right? But there's a lot of stuff that happens there because this workplace in particular it's not a titty bar, but it's kind of like Hooters. So it's a pub/bar where pretty much only good-looking women work. They wear skimpy outfits. They're not allowed to be touched or anything, but they clearly make money off their amazing looks and their tits and their asses, which is why they hardly wear anything. And then you get men who respect the boundaries, and then you get men who don't respect the boundaries, and then there's like a lot of other shit happening, and rah. So there are definitely a lot of different layers that are at play here. Overall, this is most definitely a comedy, but it has very, very dramatic undertones. It's very timely, obviously, with the culture and like Me Too and everything that is going on at the moment. So it's a very timely piece. But I think this is something that you can always watch. This is something that you can always show at festivals. That is always going to be timely and important, because I don't think we're going to get rid of sexism and misogyny and all that other shit in the next 10, 20 years. So for that, it's not heavy-handed on it. I think it's quite subtle about it. But these things do happen, and they gave it like a comedic spin. Regina Hall is just like outshining everyone, but everyone in this film is really good. Leah Delaria is in this as well, which I thought was like, oh, she showed up in the cast, and I was like, oh, all right, cool. And then 5 seconds later, there she was. And it's really well written. It's really well acted. I loved the characters, even though some of them are a bit too stereotypical for my liking. But this is definitely a Regina Hall vehicle, and I think for that it works. And it is very entertaining, so you can definitely easily grab a ticket to that, and you're not going to regret it. And with that, we're going to the Raindance Film Festival. Just quickly, I've seen this last night at the opening gala for the Raindance Film Festival. The film, because you can't read that, because no one can, is called Princesita, and it's called A Dark Fairy Tale. Now, this is a very, very dark movie. This is a not easily digestible movie, because the themes are, how should I say? I think it falls into pedophilia, sexual abuse, cultism, misogyny, like all that shit, pretty much, you know, and not in an easily digestible manner either. Now, I've just talked about that no one can read the fucking title, and that is also one of the gripes I have with the film, because I think the film is set in the here and now. It's based on a true story, actually. That's what the director, I think, mentioned before the film started. It's based on a true event, true story. And are we in Brazil? I can't even remember Chile, right. So Raindance is basically showcasing a lot of work from Chile this year, which is quite interesting. The film is bilingual, with subtitles, obviously. The film is mostly in Spanish, but there are also French bits in there. I don't speak either language, so I was like, yes, subtitles. So we basically have the Princesita, which is a young girl who, when the film starts out, she hasn't even hit puberty yet. That's how young she is. Because throughout the film, she gets her period and she becomes a woman, and that's when her cult leader all of a sudden gets interested. So yeah, it's a very fucked up film. But because it is based on true events, this is obviously something that was really important to be depicted, because this stuff still happens today. And that's why I think it's very important to watch it, which is why it's very powerful, because these events have taken place, I think, in the last 5 years. It's not very, very old, the events that are depicted here. And what it is like, it's in Chile, and there is a cult leader, who's that guy, Miguel, and he is surrounded by a bunch of other guys, but mostly women and small children. He's clearly the cult leader, and he's kind of grooming the Princesita to carry his successor, which is why she needs to remain pure. She cannot be touched by anyone, as in like sexually, like not by another man. And he's kind of like grooming her to receive his seed and then bear his successor, because he's considering himself to becoming a bit old. And as I said, the girl in question, she hasn't even hit puberty yet. She gets her period during the film, which kind of tells you how old she is. And it's all really disconcerting, and it's just very uncomfortable to watch, and a lot of stuff that they're talking about and that they're alluding to. So you don't... There's obviously, because she's a minor, this falls into the pedophilia category as well. The way that it's depicted, there's no graphical sex scene or anything in the film. It is more stylized and alluded to. But it is definitely alluded to, and you will hear things and you will see blurry things, and your mind will put it together and you will be very fucking uncomfortable. So this is not an easily digested film. It's really tough to watch. But one of the things that I had huge problems with was, again, pacing issues. This film, I think it was over 2 hours long, if I'm not mistaken. Hang on a second. Princesita. This is alphabetical, which makes everything easier. Oh no, it's actually... Oh my god, it's 78 minutes long. I felt like this film was over 2 hours. That tells you how heavy the pacing issues are in this film. The camera really lingers on the scenery, on the people, on the scenes. There are scenes in there that are not pushing the narrative forward, which is why I think it needs to be cut. It was too long. I talked to a lot of people afterwards, and everyone's like, that film was just too long. And apparently it's only 78 minutes, and that is nothing nowadays. Nowadays we watch 2.5 hour films and we're like, yeah, that's cool. But it depends on what's in it. So unfortunately, the narrative is a bit too elongated for my liking, and apparently for a lot of other people as well, which is quite a shame, because the film is really important and really powerful and really profound, and it's something that people should support and should watch. But the way that it's put together doesn't make that easy, which is really, really unfortunate. And it is something that I find that I've not really covered independent film festivals at all. I find that pacing issues is something that seems to be permeating a lot of these films. I think that mostly will have something to do with people not having a lot of budget. So and this film looks really good. So you don't have a lot of budget, and you manage to make your film look fantastic. You want to show all these awesome shots. It's like, oh my god, yeah, but we had to stay up all night just to get the 3 minutes shot of the sun coming up or something. This is so important, which is why it's gonna be in the film. Whereas it doesn't add anything to the film. But because you put so much time and effort and blood and sweat and money or whatever into it, this shot's gonna stay in the film. Even though an external observer will go, the shot's gotta go. It doesn't matter who you had to kill to get the shot's gotta go. Because it's making your film less amazing. And that's kind of what the film felt like. Like, there are too many things in there that, for whatever reason, the director, I assume, wanted to keep in because she had a personal involvement with it. Whereas an external viewer would go like, that doesn't help the narrative or the characters. This scene gives us nothing. It's gotta go. This bit, trim it. This bit, trim. Like, literally, I was going snip, 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 snip. But that's just me. The actual content is really good, except for one major gripe, which is that the lead, the young girl, even at the very end when something happens, and I wanted to say, and she does something, but that's not true. She never, throughout the entire film, even at the resolution at the end, even at the very end, she never has agency. Ever. Never, ever. Everything happens to her. She never makes anything happen. Not even the stuff at the end. And if you've seen this and you go like, well, at the end she does blah, 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 blah. Look at it closely. All she does is get up and walk out. Everything that happens around her is by pure coincidence. It's not because she wants it to happen or because she does something. Everything that happens is pure chance, pure luck, pure coincidence. She has no agency whatsoever, and that rubs me the wrong way. If this is based on real events and if this is actually what happened, fair enough, but I think poetic justice, whatever it's called, it's a film. Make it work as a film. Give the character agency at least at the end. Let her do something. Let her action something. Let her evolve. Because she basically does not. And if your character is pretty much the same at the end as they are in the beginning, even though lots of shit happened to them, why did I just watch this? Because we watch films because we want to see characters grow. We want to see characters go through shit and come out stronger the other end. This is not what I felt like happened in Princesita. And considering what is depicted in there, I want this film to be good. I want this film to be powerful. I want this film to be important. But if your lead female actress, a young teenager, not even at the very fucking end, has agency, you missed an important detail. And that is one that I just can't overlook, unfortunately. I don't mind that your credits look like an 80s synthesizer vomited out credits in neon colors that no one can read, by the way. Like, everyone was like, I have no idea. Like, if I didn't know it's called Princesita, I wouldn't be able to tell you because no one can fucking read that shit. Why it is in like 80s synthesizer neon vomit, I have no idea. But it rubbed me the wrong way because, I mean, I have a background as an editor as well. TV, but still. One of the main things you learn is every information on the screen needs to be easily legible once, potentially twice, quickly scanning it, and then you can move on to the next. Things need to be legible, things need to be readable. If people have to go, hang on, pause the movie because I'm trying to read the title. What is it? You're not doing it right. And that is one of the first things that you learn, that things, you're trying to bring information across, right? You're trying to tell a story. You're trying to introduce people to characters. So you're trying to bring information across. If you're bringing information across in a blurry way, like imagine if you're watching a film and it's all blurry. It's not going to work. Same with titles no one can read. So, yeah, that was very, very unfortunate. And several people mentioned it to me afterwards. And I was like, yeah, I have no idea. That's also one of the reasons why I really don't know who the lead actress is. So overall, this is a really important film to watch. Unfortunately, I think the execution is a bit lacking. And the lead actor, the lead character, not having agency at all throughout the entire film really does not sit well with me, unfortunately. now we're coming on to today. And I still haven't talked about, wow, Lady Gaga's film. Okay, I'm going to do a 1.5 hour broadcast. Because I don't need to go to bed or shower or anything, right? Arctic. That was on today. It's a film, I think it's a Swedish film, Scandinavian film, starring Mads Mikkelsen. And he plays a character who is stranded in the Arctic, which is why it's called Arctic. He's the sole survivor of a plane crash. And we pick him up potentially weeks after he's crashed. Because one of the first things that we find out is that he goes about his daily routine in a very routine manner. And you know what routine tells us? That the person has done this shitloads of times. So he checks his little ice fishing holes, and he checks his little SOS thingy-majig, and he checks some kind of battery he's trying to charge, all kinds of things. And you're like, wow, this guy's been here for a while. And everything looks pristine and beautiful because everything is white and full of snow because he's in the Arctic. And it's a story, a tale of survival, of physical endurance, of human willpower, mind over matter kind of a thing. And it's I'm a sucker for survival stories. I really am, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to see this. And obviously Mads Mikkelsen is a fantastic actor. If you've ever seen the Hannibal TV series, you know exactly how amazing he is. Not that he's playing a villain, he's playing the hero in this. And then something happens, and all of a sudden he's not alone anymore, but the person is really incapacitated, which is why he actually has to take care of this person now, and that person is of no help whatsoever. He's basically taking care of dead weight. And then a lot of other stuff happens and blah, blah, blah. So, like I said, spoiler free, I don't want to give too much away. This is definitely one where I would say try and grab a ticket to that. If you like survival stories and great performances and you like nature, try and watch this because it's really fantastic. The stuff that happens in there, it's just like sometimes I have a hard time understanding why a character would do something, but then my mind goes, this is why. And then my heart goes, and this is why. And everything that happens in this film, every single detail made perfect sense to me. Like, he makes some really weird and interesting choices. And you're like, really? You're doing this, but you didn't do it earlier when it was so much easier. And now that it's harder, more problematic, you're doing it. What the fuck's wrong with you? But it makes perfect sense because all of a sudden there's this other person there that he has to take care of. And we're human. We are, most of us at least, we are programmed to take care of each other. We're programmed to support each other. And because he's been alone for quite a while, which is what his daily routine is clearly showing us. And all of a sudden there's this other person. You immediately have a connection with them because you don't want to be alone. We're humans. We don't want to be alone. We're community creatures, right? And that person, even though they're a stranger, you don't know them. But they're all of a sudden the most important person for you on this planet because they're the only other person with you. Otherwise, you're alone. And I could immediately understand all the shit that he went through, all the weird decisions that initially might not have made sense. But I was like, you know what? Yeah, I get it now. And then other things happen, and you just... he has to go through a lot of hardship, obviously. And like I said, the other person is just dead weight, which doesn't make it easier. And of course, you're going to go is like, well, is it better if I survive by myself? And ditch this person, but it means I'm getting rid of my humanity by abandoning this person in need? Or do I potentially not make it, but at least I've tried saving this person? So that stuff happens all the time, and these things are, these decisions and choices are posed to him constantly. Hope and hopelessness are constantly intertwined every single second of his experience in the Arctic. And I'm not going to tell you how it ends, and I'm not going to tell you anything that happens. There's a lot of stuff that happens where you're like, what? What else are you going to throw at me? And he's got his emotional thing, and then he just, like I said, it's about willpower, mind over matter, and physical endurance. And I would have probably given up 50 million times before he even started fishing. It's a really, really fantastic, powerful, intimate tale of a person trying to survive in the most inhospitable environment that we have on this planet, the Arctic. And it's fantastic, and it looks fantastic, and it sounds fantastic as well. It's really well shot. Like I said, I didn't have time to do any research before I started broadcasting this. I've only seen it earlier this morning, and I can still feel it, like the scenery, like everything is glaringly white, blindingly white, and the chill, and just the alienness pretty much of the landscape. And I'm going to tell you one thing. There's one really beautiful shot that I'm not sure if it was planted or if they just came across it, but amongst all the ice, there is one little bit where they find color. It's like Zhang Yimou's black and white thing, right? So everything's white, and then they find this flower, this weird. It's not even a flower. This weird growth of something that brings color into this whiteness. And it is so powerful, and I really would like to talk to the director about this. Like, is this planted, or did you actually find this? I'm gonna have a look whether I get to interview the guy actually. Let's see, interview for Arctic. But yeah, it's a really great piece. I think Mads Mikkelsen, he really sells it really, really well. I'm not sure how long they were out there to film it, but he looks haggard and he looks fucked and exhausted, and he does it really, really well. Really loved it. And all the things that you think are going to go wrong, they're going to go wrong. All the things that he encounters, he's going to encounter. And you're just like, oh, what the hell else is going to happen? You know, it's like, it's really, really well done. And if you like survival films, survival tales, you're going to love this film. So this is the third one that I would say is like, really grab a ticket for that one. So the first one was Crystal Swan, then the Bill Murray stories, and now Arctic. Fantastic film. Absolutely loved it. I'd highly recommend it. This one is called Jinn. And I'm still talking about films, eh? Over 1 hour. This is a very interesting film I saw earlier today. It's about a teenage girl who's about to graduate high school. And it's set in LA. She's a black girl. Her parents are divorced, and she lives with her mum. And her mum all of a sudden discovers Islam and converts to Islam. And this is how her daughter reacts to it, copes with it, how it affects her, what she does. So this is all, it's not your typical coming of age story. It's more about religion and faith and identity and individuality and personal freedom. And it's really powerful. It's really interesting. And obviously, given the current climate, how we in the West and the media in the West are hating on stuff that has to do with Islam and Muslims, and just like how we're scapegoating them into just everything. It's a really interesting film to watch, and I really loved it. It's very it's also very entertaining, but it's also quite thought-provoking. It's quite profound. They make some very good points there, and I mean, I'm not a Muslim, but I hope that how they're depicting everything is authentic and proper. I really enjoyed it because it makes you think about these kinds of things. And like I said, I don't want to give it too much away. This is more an experience than it is a film, because you really go through what the girl is going through. And obviously, it's set in the here and now, so there's a lot of social media that is going crazy, especially with young kids, right? So one of the things for women in Islam is obviously modesty, right? So that obviously will clash, and that is quite an interesting depiction in the film as well. But it's definitely opened up a dialogue about faith and religion and identity. And I think I already mentioned personal freedom and all that stuff. But it's really fantastic how it's depicted. I'm not sure if it's based on real events, but it's done in a very entertaining way. Sometimes certain bits are a bit cringy, but it's just because you know what's going to happen later. This one, I think, did not have pacing issues. And I really enjoyed watching the lead. I think her name, is it Zoe Renee or something? She's a young black girl. She's fantastic. She plays the daughter. And it was just nice to see that most people in the film, like the immediate family, were actually not very alienated by the mother converting to Islam, because usually the generic response is always, oh, you're converting to Islam, why the fuck would you do that? You're a woman. What? You got a problem? You want to walk behind the man and you want to wear like a scarf and all that stuff. This is what the people are saying in the film. But the husband, well, the ex-husband is quite understanding and supportive, and basically telling the daughter, going like, maybe you should try to be a bit more open-minded and just see what your mother has discovered and what she, like, open up a dialogue. Why did she do it? And that kind of opens up the daughter's mind to, maybe I shouldn't have been so, I don't want anything to do with that. So it's really interesting the way that it's introducing you to Islam and how a woman chose to basically convert to Islam. It's got nothing to do with her boyfriend or her husband is into it and making her. No, it's her free choice and how it affects her and how it makes her so much happier, because she found something that really resonated with her. It's a really interesting depiction of it. I don't know much about religion and faith, and I should probably study a lot more in that regard, because it's obviously really, really important at the moment. And it's always important, faith and religion. But I have an aversion to religion, because as soon as you organize faith, which to me is the definition of religion, I always find it becomes tainted very, very quickly, because we as humans are just so power hungry. But this one is a very open-minded way of talking and conversing about faith and religion and what you think of it and how it affects you and what you want from it and what you think you're going to get out of it, how the world perceives you and how that affects you. And the Jinn is, actually I'm not going to give it away. They're explaining fairly early on what the Jinn is, and it really weaves itself throughout the film and immediately resonates with the lead. And I think it immediately resonated with me as well, and maybe it will with you. And I think it's really well done, and I really enjoyed it. Even though I have to admit that at first I was like, I had, just like the lead, I had a bit of an aversion because it had to do with religion and faith, and I'm pretty much an atheist, and I was like, well, I don't know if I can deal with that. And it was really well done. It felt very balanced and open-minded, and not like it's trying to drown you in a certain perspective or way of thinking. So I definitely enjoyed Jinn. It sounds like I have a drinking problem. I enjoyed Jinn. So it's a really good movie. I thought the performances are really good. I liked the topic, the theme was astoundingly, surprisingly well done, and in an open-minded way, which is what I didn't think was going to happen. So definitely check this one out if you can. The female lead is fantastic. And this is the other film that I've seen today. It's called Manto. It's got something to do... it's about a guy called Manto in the 40s in India. That was when the British basically got the fuck out of India, and then India and Pakistan got separated. Well, because Pakistan used to be a part of India, and when the British left, India decided to put their Muslim population outside, give them their own little state, which we now know as Pakistan, and all the Hindus and the Shiites, I'm not sure, sorry, all the non-Muslims, they got to live in India, and all the Muslims had to relocate to the northern bits, which is now known as Pakistan. And if you've seen the Viceroy's Wife or something with Gillian Anderson, I think that came out last year, that depicts the same period where it's basically people, like the British get the hell out, and then India decides we don't want no Muslims in the country, they can have their own country. And that obviously causes a lot of friction amongst the population, because just depending on which part of the population you fall under, all of a sudden you might have to move. Your entire family might have to move. You will not be able to see your friends again. You have to totally up your life and relocate, which is, horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And it's depicted in this film, Manto, by the writer called Manto. He used to be a script writer for, nowadays we would say, for the Bollywood movies. And he wrote short stories. And he's a Muslim who used to live in Mumbai. And because he's a Muslim and the separation happened, he had to relocate to Pakistan, to Lahore. And he, that didn't go that well for him. And he literally up and added his life, and his career didn't transfer really well. And then he ran into alcohol problems, and how it goes. It's a downward spiral from there, right? And this is basically about his life and the upheaval that happens in India in 47, I think it is. And all the stuff about the different faiths and religions and how they clash. So in that regard, it's got something to do with Jinn. But this is a period piece. But funny enough, it depicts pretty much the same thing that is currently going on there as well. We have a lot of issues in regards to certain groups of faith and religion clashing with other groups of faith and religion. So it's quite a timely film in that regard, even though it is a period piece that is like 70 years in the past. The guy, can't remember his name, but he's quite famous in India. He's really, really good. But overall, I have to admit, the film didn't really wow me. I'm not much of like a period piece kind of a person. I didn't feel very emotionally involved in this. I found it quite, don't really want to say by the numbers, but I found it very unemotional. Considering he has to, like I said, up and at his life, like his life, his work, his wife, his kids, everything had to move. And that's a big thing. I mean, I've moved to different countries several times throughout my life, and that is a big thing. It's huge. What do you take with you? You go there, you don't know anyone. Maybe you don't even speak the language. Not that would have been a problem in this, but you get the gist. Everything is foreign. Everything is alien. Everything is uncomfortable. But for whatever reason, I just had no emotional connection with this story, which, if you've ever seen any of my shows before, is a huge problem for me if I'm not emotionally connected. So for me, this was more like a documentary than the Bill Murray stories was. Because Bill Murray stories, I was emotionally so into this. It so resonated with me. I was like, damn, I'm living in this film. This one, I felt very emotionally disconnected. I felt like I was objectifying the film, not in a sexual way, but you know what I mean. It's like you have this disconnection. It's almost like when you're watching a documentary. It's like you're engaged here, not here. And that is usually why I don't like documentaries as much, because when I watch a film, I like to be emotionally connected. That's the whole actor thing in me. So that didn't work in this film, which is why I thought it felt flat a bit. I also thought the film was way too long. I think it was like 2.5 hours or something. It was really, really long. Let's see, Manto is part of the Create thing. Let's have a look. I really want to check. 85. Manto, let's have a look. 112 minutes. Oh, Nawazuddin Siddiqui. He's the lead. He's apparently like really famous in India. But yeah, the film is 112 minutes, and it felt like it was like 2.5 hours long. It was really long. and it turned into a court procedural near the end as well. I usually like court procedurals, but here I was like, no. Maybe I've just seen too many movies in the last few days, but this one just didn't connect for me, unfortunately, which was, yeah, it's a bit unfortunate because I'm pretty sure that this could have been really interesting. I like historical stuff usually, especially like, you know, you're breaking apart a country, and then someone just draws a new line and goes like, and this is country A and this is country B. What the heck? But for whatever reason, I wasn't engaged in this one, unfortunately. And last but not least, this is the film why I am very late with this broadcast. A Crimson Star by Aya Igashi, who was also in attendance. This is another Raindance Film Festival one. And funny enough, this is actually an LGBT film, even though the director said this is not an LGBT film, just because there are some LGBT themes in there. And I was like, that was very interesting. I did not know that this, for me, falls into the LGBT category because these two characters basically have a relationship of a sexual nature. Even though I found that they have absolute zero sexual chemistry, which is when they all of a sudden started making out. I was like, where the heck did that come from? Because it's said in the script. So for me, it didn't work. I'm usually quite good at depicting, going like, ooh, you know, someone's being a bit cheeky, but nothing. And then all of a sudden it was like, I thought the younger one adored the older one because of, you know, what, like some kind of infatuation. That happens all the time. Like I thought it was like a one-way street kind of a relationship. But then the older one started it as well, and I was like, why? First of all, the girl is 14 years old, and this is a grown-up. And that makes me really uneasy. And then when the Q&A was happening with the director who was in attendance, which was where I found out that this LGBT film apparently is not an LGBT film because she doesn't categorize it as such. Fair enough. The actress who plays the younger girl is actually 14 or was 14 years old when this was shot. Which is why there are no sex scenes really happening. Nothing's you don't see anything. It's not explicit, and they had to shoot it that way because obviously laws. So I would have been quite interesting. It's like, why didn't you just hire someone who was 18 and you could get away with it? But then also we don't necessarily need to see explicit sex scenes. Obviously, I was more concerned that there was absolutely zero sexual chemistry between these two. So to me, that just felt like it. All of a sudden, it happened. I was like, what? I did not see that coming. And it's not like, wow, it's a nice surprise. I did not see that coming. It was like, they have no chemistry. What the heck? So I was really worried about that. But one of the things that this film is really interesting is also quite powerful because the older lady, the character's called Yayoi. And she has, like, throughout the film, you find out that she has, like, abandonment issues, that she always feels, like, not good enough, like the second fiddle, that no one really commits to her. And that obviously highly informs her and her relationships and how she sees herself and how she sees herself in relationships, which is why she is not very successful in having a committed relationship. So there are flings and other things. And one of the things that I didn't quite understand about the film is like the young girl, she meets Yayoi in a hospital because the young girl's in hospital for whatever condition. She was apparently in hospital for a year, and I have no idea why. I don't think they ever mention it again, or if they do, it wasn't in the subtitles, so I just didn't notice. And Yayoi was the nurse, and then for whatever reason she quits. And the girl finds Yayoi in the car park doing things with people that pay her money for it. And it just derails from there, and it's like a really dark depiction of what, like, it's all about Yayoi, about the nurse, and not so much about the young child. But the young child is also, I say child, but the young teenager. She's going through a lot of stuff as well. She's, like I said, she was in hospital for a year, and then all of a sudden she's at home. But her mother, for whatever reason, doesn't really care that she's back home, that she doesn't really care what she's doing at all. You know, it's like, oh, she's not home. It's like, yeah, whatever. It's like, I don't care. She jumps out the window and goes places, and the mother really just doesn't care. And it's all about what you want, who you want, why you want them. And the Crimson Star is basically the nurse, and the young woman, the young teenager is infatuated with the nurse. That is very obvious. But then all of a sudden the nurse is reciprocating, and it felt like it was coming out of left field for me. So that was a bit bizarre. It was quite interesting that I picked this film purely because it worked with the screening times after London Film Festival, and I was like, okay, cool, I can go and watch this. And then it turned out that it had LGBT themes, which is obviously really important to me. So I was quite happy that I was watching it. However, the stuff that happened there made me very uncomfortable, because we have a grown-up woman that is having an affair, some kind of relationship with a 14-year-old girl. That is just not okay. And it also felt like the adult in the relationship just, you know, couldn't commit, and wasn't really serious about things. It was like everything is just a fling to her, because she has these abandonment and insecurity issues, and it's just, both of these people are pretty much fucked up, and it feels like they connect with each other over their fucked upness, for lack of a better word. And there are like other people coming into, like, it turns it into a triangle and a square, and you know, all kinds of things are happening there that I'm not going to get into, because I don't want to spoil it. But it just felt, it was interesting that after I'd seen the film, I was of this total mindset that the entire film is basically about the nurse, and yet throughout the film I felt like they wanted to tell me that it's about the young teenager. It could be about both of them, but I never felt like that. I always felt like the nurse was the secondary character, which was really bizarre, because by the end of the film I was like, that's not the case. She's actually supposed to be the lead. She's the person that this is all about, even though she is the infatuation of the young child, which is why the film is called The Crimson Star, because the Yayoi, the nurse or ex-nurse, she goes paragliding with one of her boyfriends, and the paraglider is red, and every time the young woman, the young teenager, is staring at the sky and sees the paraglider, she sees a crimson star. So the title obviously makes sense, and it's this whole, like, she's up there, I'm down here, I can't reach her. Like, the whole thing is like when we're infatuated with people and we put them on a pedestal and all of that stuff. It makes perfect sense. But overall, I thought the film was a bit... It was at the Cannes Film Festival, and people are saying it's really great. And I was like, I thought it was a bit lackluster. It didn't really... Just like the character, it didn't really fully commit to what it wanted to be. And the director even said in the Q&A afterwards that she doesn't see it as an LGBT thing. She personally is interested in women as well, but she sees herself as straight, even though every now and then she's interested in a woman. And I'm like, it felt really non-committal, and I understand that. Obviously, a lot of people don't like to be categorized. They don't like to be put into categories, especially younger people. And this actor, this director, I think is 21 or 22 years old, so she is very, very young. So I think for me, because I'm older, it felt non-committal. But to them, it's probably just about being fluid and just going with the flow. And maybe I'm just too stuck in my own concepts to be able to kind of like really go with that. I found this one also had tremendous pacing issues. There are certain bits in there that I was just like, why is the scene in there? It's not giving me any kind of new information. Some of these characters end up crying profusely in such an extreme way that I almost laughed, where I was like, fair enough, you cry, but why are you crying like a 5-year-old girl that just dropped her lollipop into a sandbox? It's like, I've never seen a grown-up cry like that. It just felt forced. and overly stylized to me. And for whatever reason, I couldn't connect to it. And as I mentioned, if I can't connect to it, then I have a huge problem with it. So unfortunately, I categorize it as potentially part of the LGBT scene, because these two characters are in a relationship together sometime in this film. But yeah, like the director, I would not classify it as LGBT, because I don't think it's necessarily about their sexual relationship. It's more about their mental relationship, their emotional relationship, because they're both going through a lot of stuff. They're both really fucked up, and I think that's kind of like why they're connecting. Overall, I'm not sure if I would recommend it, to be quite honest. I think I'm still processing this one. I didn't find it very entertaining. I didn't find the characters very entertaining. I found the film very misogynistic, which might be Japanese culture. I don't know. But there's a lot of physical violence, not heavy physical violence, but there's a lot of slapping. But it's like, if a man slapped me in the face just because I'm saying something, I'd have a huge problem with it. So it's those kinds of things. Didn't sit very well with me. Overall, yeah, I feel very meh about it. And considering that it apparently had a really good run at Cannes and people really liked it and thought it was one of the most amazing and profound things that have ever come out of Japan, especially by such a young filmmaker, I was like, wow, did we watch the same film? For whatever reason, it did not resonate with me, unfortunately. But maybe it does with you. And now, onto the actual highlight. And I know I'm already an hour and 40 minutes in. I'm so sorry. A Star is Born with Lady Gaga. Now, this is like the other two films called A Star is Born, the Judy Garland one, the Barbra Streisand one. You've probably seen the trailer. We've got Bradley Cooper playing some kind of music god with a really good career. He sees Lady Gaga singing somewhere. Hey Shade, how you doing? I know I'm still running, so come and join me. I'm now just starting to talk about A Star is Born, spoiler free. So he sees her at a drag show where she's singing, and he is just infatuated with her because she's a great, great singer, and that is something I can relate to. Had a huge crush on a girl because she had a great voice. She was a great singer on stage, and I like nothing else about her I thought was great other than that, and I was so infatuated with her. So he has the same thing. She is like down on her luck. She's like a waitress or whatever, and he basically helps her into a music career. So the story is the same as in the other two versions of A Star is Born. However, this time we have, I'm not saying that Judy Garland and Barbra Streisand can't sing. They can sing. However, then there's Lady Gaga. And this woman has a voice. Like, I don't have to tell you guys. You've heard her sing, right? Even though, like, a lot of her albums, and I have a few of her albums, she doesn't really belt out her voice much, does she? But one of the things why I wanted to see this is every time I see the trailer, when she gets up on stage for the first time and then she starts to go for it, where the whole, like, you can see the shockwave emanating from her mouth because of how powerful her voice is, right? It gives me goosebumps, and it makes me all teary and emotional because it is so fucking powerful every time I see the trailer. And it's even more powerful when you watch it in the film. And there are a few of these scenes throughout the film where every time she sings, not just sings, but when she really belts out the power and the volume of her voice, where she doesn't need a microphone. She will just fill the entire stadium with her voice without any help. And it gives me goosebumps, and it gets me all teary and emotional, and it is just so fantastic. And this film is not just about Lady Gaga being an amazing singer and having one of the most amazing voices out there. It's also showcasing how great of an actress she is. And if you've never seen her in American Horror Story, I think she was in season 6, 7? Which one was Hotel? I think that might have been 6. So check out... Hey, oh, Jess! Hello! You're late. You're very late, but welcome, welcome. I'm just talking spoiler-free about A Star is Born.
So if you've never seen Lady Gaga act, check out American Horror Story season 6, I think it is. Whatever season's called Hotel. She's in that. And I remember my reaction to that was, she's a singer, why is she an actor? That's bullshit, rah rah rah. And then I watched it and I immediately shut my fucking pie hole because she is fantastic. And she's even better in this. She shoulders the entire production. She's the lead in this. No doubt about it. And she can lead this entire film. She's a leading lady. I can't wait to see her next project because she's already so fantastic. And it's not just because she's a great singer. She's a great actor. She's so subtle and yet powerful and nuanced. Hey Deb, how are you doing? I'm talking about Star is Born. No spoilers. And she's just so powerful and subtle and nuanced and captivating on screen with her big eyes that you can't help but want to watch her. She's irresistible. She's absolutely fantastic. And that is without seeing her sing. And when she does that, then that's when the whole goosebumps and just everything. I got so emotional. It was fantastic. It was like, I don't know, like a church experience or something. It was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. Now, the story obviously is the story that we've heard 50 million times before. There's nothing new here. But Lady Gaga really goes for it. She really bears it all. She doesn't hide anything. She's very vulnerable. She goes for it. She's very emotional, but she's also very composed. She's very powerful, but yeah, it's great. It's a really, really great performance. I really loved it. I can't wait to see it again. Not just because of the music, but it's just the performances are great. And then the funny thing is that Bradley Cooper, obviously has he won an Academy Award? I don't think so. Has he? Well, he's Academy Award nominated actor, right? Which is quite something. Not a lot of people can say that. But she easily outplays him in this. Like, he has no chance against her. And the funny thing is that while she kind of like bears all and really goes for it and is vulnerable and goes into the nitty gritty and does like the ugly acting stuff, you know, which is fantastic, which is why it's so powerful. It's him who seems to shy away from going into that ugliness because his character obviously deals with drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and all of that stuff, which makes you look ugly, makes you go through hell, makes you look like shit. The problem is that every time you see Bradley Cooper in this film, even when he's at the lowest of the low moments of his character, he still looks handsome. And that is just wrong. That is just so unbelievably unrealistic. That I was like, I know he's a pretty boy and he's got this pretty boy image and people find him handsome and sexy and all of the things. But it's like, dude, you can't be handsome and sexy and all of them things if you're going through alcohol and drug abuse. Exactly, Shade. That's exactly what it is. She is real because she shows you the ugliness and the darkness. And that's exactly what we want to see. That is what we want to see from actors because they don't shy away from being vulnerable, from showing their deepest, darkest shit to everyone. Those are the performances that we remember, the performances that really stick with us. And that is what Lady Gaga does in this film. Even though, of course, Bradley Cooper's character is the one who goes into the horrible stuff even more. Like I said, alcohol and drug abuse. But Cooper seems to shy away from fully embracing that, which is a shame because that could have been fantastic and powerful. Now, overall, I thought his performance was alright. I thought it was decent, but it would have been amazing if he had dared to go ugly. And I'm not saying that he should just look like shit, but seriously, I've never gone through drug or alcohol abuse, but you just need to look down into the streets and see people who have problems with drugs and alcohol and what they look like. And trust me, they don't look handsome. And that's why the film kind of failed in that regard. And one of the things that I didn't like about it was it's called A Star is Born, and the star is clearly Lady Gaga's character. The emphasis is not on her.
the emphasis seems to be on Cooper's character, enabling her to become a star. And I think they wasted a bit of an opportunity there, which is really unfortunate, because she is the highlight. She is what I want to see. She's who I want to see, and not him. If they have scenes together, fine, but the emphasis needs to be on her. And it feels like the emphasis is either on him or on both of them equally. And it felt imbalanced. And maybe that's because Bradley Cooper was also directing it and he wanted more screen time. I don't know what that is, but overall I felt like the imbalance is going in the wrong way. It should have gone into Gaga's corner, but it feels like it's more in Cooper's corner, which is a bit unfortunate. I love that Lady Gaga wrote a lot of songs for this film, so it feels like she wrote an album and then they made a movie around it. So that I really loved, because I like her music. Her voice is fantastic. She's a great performer, not just on stage, even in front of a camera, which is quite interesting, because for the camera you have to be tiny. Like, you shouldn't move around that much. You shouldn't be energetic, which is what I always do. And she really knows how to use stillness. And that is why she's so powerful. And everything's in her big eyes. And it's amazing. I really can't wait to see it again. But there's also obviously the whole thing that, which is why it felt potentially a bit more personal to Lady Gaga, because the character is mentioning something along the lines of, people like my music, but they don't like the way I look. And I think Lady Gaga mentioned this like years and years and years ago at the start of her career, that this is also something that she had encountered in her career. So I thought that was quite good, and that's why I liked it, and it was very personal and profound in that regard. But where it then falls flat is later on in the film, when they make her into the star. They basically give her the Breakfast at Tiffany's makeover, change her hair, change her look. They could have put a really good commentary in there. It's like, she doesn't need all that shiny glamorousness shit. She's awesome the way she is, right? There's even a line in there where she's like, I don't want to lose the bit of me that's talented with all this shit around me. And I really, really love that. But overall, A Star is Born is a great film. Like, the film itself is not great. The film is good. It could have been a lot better, I think. But the film is a really good film with great actors, especially the people that play her family, like her dad and his cohorts. They're hilariously entertaining. But she definitely is the star. She outshines every single person in this film. And I'm telling you, you need to go and see it. Whether you like Lady Gaga or not, whether you like Lady Gaga's music or not, you need to go and see it. This is like the underdog story that we all like to watch, because we all root for the underdog. And the underdog is very likable and relatable and captivating. You really want to root for her. And then when she steps on stage and she starts belting out that brilliant goddess-like voice of hers for the very first time. Seriously, if you don't get goosebumps and get a bit teary-eyed and emotional and just think like, this is what God must sound like, without any blasphemy, I am an atheist. Seriously, I have no idea what's wrong with you. It is such a profound moment. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. More so for Lady Gaga than anything else, even though I'm not even that big a fan, but she's just fantastic in this. Everyone needs to go and see it. Okay, and this broadcast has run for 2 hours now. This is the longest I've ever done. Oh, this is the other poster, never mind. Quickly, going to talk about The Little Stranger. This came into cinemas. Oh yeah, Star is Born is out in cinemas now. The world premiere was yesterday. No, sorry, actually earlier today, Lady Gaga was at Leicester Square. And Little Stranger came out last week. It's based on a Sarah Waters novel. And it stars Domhnall Gleeson and Ruth Wilson. We also have Will Poulter and Charlotte Rampling in there. But it's basically like a bit of a ghost story, but without being a ghost story. Domhnall Gleeson plays a doctor who is being summoned to 100 Acres to help Will Poulter with... he's like a victim from the Second World War, First World War. I can't remember actually, was it for First or Second World War? And
And then something happens in the house, which is why stuff happens to Will Poulter, stuff happens to Charlotte Rampling, stuff happens to Ruth Wilson, stuff happens to Donald Gleason, so to speak, to the maid as well. Oh yeah, he's actually being summoned to help the maid out first. And we all think it's like some kind of ghost story. There's a ghost in the house. And then throughout the film you find out like he kind of gets a bit infatuated with Ruth Wilson, or does he get infatuated with the house? Yeah, I'm very moved by Gaga's performance and singing, Shahid. Absolutely, mate. You totally got that right. Like every time I saw the trailer, I got all emotional when she starts singing, and it's even worse in the film. It's like, yeah, it was powerful. Have you seen it? Let me know if you've seen it yet. Do you like Lady Gaga? Do you like her singing? But yeah, so this is basically more of like a ghost story, and the reveal at the end is so predictable, whether you've read the book or not. I've not read the book, but you can tell where this is going about halfway through the film, if it even takes you that long. And because you're just waiting for validation, whether your theory is right or not, the movie takes quite a bit, which is a bit annoying. But this one lives off its performances. Donald Gleason is really good as the doctor. Ruth Wilson, obviously she's Ruth Wilson, she's phenomenal. And she pretty much carries the entire film. But there's not much there to carry, unfortunately, because there's pretty much no plot. There's a lot of reminiscing of what it was like when they were a child, which is obviously given away. A lot of stuff that will be in the resolution to this entire thing. It's not a horror movie. It's not even a thriller. There's a few bits where you're like, ooh, something's going to happen now. Ooh, we're going to do a cheap jump scare. But then nothing really happens. Except for at the very end. Then there's like, well, actually, there's something early on as well. But there's so sparsely, like in between, like there's a bit here and then half an hour later is another bit. That doesn't make a horror movie. So this is not a horror movie. It's not even a thriller. I think it's more like an old school, old towny ghost story that has like maybe 3 potential horror scenes in it. The resolution is so obvious that it's not even really a resolution. It kind of lives off its performances, but even they are not that enticing and engaging, not for the entirety of the film, unfortunately. The film does take quite a while to get going, and not much is happening in there. You know that Donald Gleason is clearly steering in a certain direction, and that there's this connection with their childhood and with the house. So yeah, I'm trying to think about it. It's like there's not actually much that happens in this film, which is exactly what the problem is. There's not much plot, which is why you know exactly what's going to happen, where it's going. The house itself looks really good. The house itself is pretty much a tiny bit of a character. It's one of those old-looking mansions here in the UK, so it looks really fascinating. And Ruth Wilson is quite captivating. Donald Gleason is interesting as well. But overall, I wouldn't say it was a waste of time, but I felt a bit like, meh, seen this a few times before, so to speak. Nothing really flashy about this one. Nothing where I would say, this is why you should watch it, or this is why you should watch it. If you're a fan of either Donald Gleason or Ruth Wilson, or maybe Charlotte Rampling or William Poulter, Poulter does a really good job here again. He's a very consistently decent actor. I like seeing him. He's very subtle in what he does. He has a very peculiar look, and he really makes that work for him. I really love that. Yeah, her realness to her vulnerabilities. I think that's probably why Lady Gaga is a very good actor, even though I think she's never trained. She's just a really good performer, and she's very real and natural, and that translates on camera really well. And yeah, I love seeing her. Ever since American Horror Story, now with A Star Is Born, I can't wait to see her next project. I'm definitely putting her on my list of actresses that are enough for me to go and check out a film or a TV show. She's really, really good. So, movie of the week is going to be a big problem. So, Little Stranger, good movie, but overall, if you miss it, you haven't missed much, to be quite honest. Movie of the week is going to be a bit problematic because I've seen about 15 films this week, and I'm not shitting you, because London Film Festival is just crazy. The highlights were the Bill Murray stories. Hey, no worries, mate. Thank you very much for tuning in. Next time it will be 8 p.m. again, UK time, so a lot earlier. Have a good night. But I think, yeah, the Bill Murray stories for the film festival, definitely my thing. Yeah, 15. Yeah, London Film Festival is going, and the Raindance Film Festival is going, and I also watched 2 other films this week. So yeah, it's crazy. I watch about 4 films every single day, which is why I'm a bit knackered and a bit crazy and a bit late. But thank you very much for watching, Shahid. I hope you tune in next Thursday at 8 p.m. UK time, because I was a bit late today, and I've been running this for 2 hours now. I'm so sorry, guys. I can't believe that I'm talking this long. But movie of the week this week, I would say the Bill Murray stories for the film festival. And for the general releases that are actually out in mainstream cinemas, it would be A Star is Born with Lady Gaga, most definitely. Because this was the last one? Yeah. Yeah. This is definitely the film of the week for me, A Star is Born. Even though the film itself is not that great, but the performances across the board are really good. Lady Gaga is phenomenal. A lot of other people are really phenomenal, especially in smaller roles. Cooper could have been better, but is decent enough. And yeah, I just love a good underdog story. I always go for the underdog. Okay, so then, quickly, new on DVD. We have next week, Show Dogs is coming out. If you haven't seen this in cinemas, and I haven't, and I also don't plan on seeing it on Blu-ray or video on demand. But if you really want to see that thing about the dogs, go for it. Revenge is out, which is a film I missed in cinemas. Or maybe we haven't even had it as a cinema release. I don't know. I'm going to check that out. And Fahrenheit 451, the HBO, what is it, movie of the week or something like that, with Creed, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name right now. What's his name? Michael B. Jordan. He's the lead in that, and Sophia Boutella is in it as well, which is why I know about Fahrenheit 451, because I'm a huge fan of Sophia Boutella's. So I'm going to check that one out. It's not a cinema release, but it's out on DVD, so you can check it out. And Interview for the Arctic, that's something else. Okay, I have no idea what's new on Netflix, because I had no chance of checking it. I hope you guys have a good day or good weekend at the cinema. Check out A Star is Born. Let me know what else you're watching. There's quite a few new things coming out, like The Wife is coming out and stuff like that, but no real ginormously important highlights. If you still haven't seen A Simple Favor, make sure you go and check. Do me a favor and check out A Simple Favor. Also check out Crazy Rich Asians, which is still in cinemas. Searching. There's quite a lot of really good stuff in the cinema until the London Film Festival starts on the 10th of October. Stay tuned to my Twitter, Melanie_Radloff, for all news, spoiler-free reviews of any of the films that I've seen and that I am allowed to talk about at the London Film Festival, so you know what to grab your tickets for. Make sure you grab tickets for the Bill Murray stories, for Crystal Swan, and for Arctic if you're into survival stuff. There's some really good stuff coming out. I'm also covering the Raindance Film Festival, which has started yesterday, so go and grab a bunch of tickets for that. I'm just watching the regular screening, so unfortunately I can't tell you beforehand what is worth watching and what isn't, according to my opinion, because I'm just watching the regular screenings just like you do. But I hope to see you guys there. Make sure you check out A Star is Born. Let me know what else you've been watching, what you like, what you didn't like. If you disagree with me, you agree with me on anything that I was talking about. If you're still watching this after 2 hours, kudos to you. I still can't believe how I can just talk for 2 hours straight. Have a good day, have a good evening, have a good night, depending on where you are. Shahid, good night. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day and weekend and all of that stuff at the cinema. Go and watch some stuff. Let me know. Find me on Twitter. Let me know what you're watching, what you think of it. Anything that I haven't seen that I should be watching, get on there and let me know. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome night, an awesome weekend, and I will see you at the movies. Bye.